Okay, so we are going to read Management of Snake Envenomation from Suchitra Ranjit. In 2004, the WHO established a snake bite treatment group aiming to identify the problems and the possible solutions in order to reduce the current level of snake bite mortality. The new protocols are intended to encourage doctors, particularly in the primary health centers, to treat the snake bite with confidence and enable a reduction in the mortality. However, ideally and where possible, management should proceed in a well equipped ICU. Common variants of the snake and the unique toxicity. One is Elapidae. They are the cobras and the kraits. They are highly neurotoxic. These cobras and kraits are highly neurotoxic. Some species also have cytotoxicity. Viperidae, like rattlesnake and vipers, local swelling and tissue destruction, intravascular hemolysis, and bleeding tendency. And sea snakes, the Hydrophidae, they are myotoxic. They cause myotoxicity. Diagnosis of envenomation. A high index of suspicion should be maintained in children who suddenly become ill while unsupervised outside, particularly in the rural areas and in the summer months. Signs of the snake bite, but not necessarily envenomation, may include puncture marks, usually on the limbs, that may be difficult to see, may consist of a single, double, or multiple puncture marks, or a scratch mark, may be bleeding or oozing, multiple punctures such as severe envenomation. Regional tender lymphadenopathy may be present after the bites from both non-venomous and venomous snakes. Now the features of envenomation. Local effects are progressive limb swelling. Matlab, these are the features which will occur if the patient has got venom inside him or her. So the local effects include progressive limb swelling. There will be blistering and discoloration and bleeding and oozing and pain. Non-specific features include headache, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, collapse, and unconsciousness. Specific features include myolysis, neurotoxicity, and coagulopathy. Fine. So these are the features of envenomation. Local effects, there will be non-specific features like headache, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, collapse, and unconsciousness. And specific features include myolysis, neurotoxicity, and coagulopathy. In myolysis, there will be painful tender muscles and dark urine. Because there is myolysis, no, so that myoglobin will come out in the urine, causing the urine to be dark. Neurotoxicity, that is blurred vision, diplopia, ptosis, dysarthria, dyspnea, respiratory failure, difficulty in swallowing or breathing, slurred speech, weakness, paralysis, and paresthesia. Coagulopathy, that is spontaneous bleeding from the mucosal surfaces, and this is coagulopathy, spontaneous bleeding from the mucosal surfaces and the continual bleeding from the bite site or venipunctures. Fine. Starting with the management of an envenomated victim. First aid is done by Do It Right. The first aid recommended is based on the mnemonic Do It Right. R stands for reassure the patient, I stand for immobilize the same way as a fractured limb. Children can be carried, use bandages or cloth to hold the splints. Do not block the blood supply or apply the pressure. Do not apply any compression in the form of tight ligatures. GH is go to the hospital immediately, and T is tell the doctor any systemic symptoms such as the ptosis that manifests on way to hospital. Now, this was the first point that we read on the first day, that was do it right. Starting with the second one, are tourniquets useful? While widely used by lay people, adverse effects are frequent, including the ischemic damage, ineffective in retarding the venom flow, potentially increase the necrotic action of the envenomment, sudden neurotoxic blockage, and clotting when released. Remember, tight arterial tourniquets are not recommended. Fine. So these are the damages that it will cause. It will cause ischemic damage, ineffective in retarding the venom flow, potentially increase the necrotic action, and sudden neurotoxic blockage, and clotting when released. Fine. In light of these problems, the pressure immobilization method has been advocated as a reliable technique to inhibit the venom flow into the system. Pressure immobilization technique involves tying a crepe bandage around the limb, including an integral splint, in the same way as for the sprain. This is pressure immobilization technique. That is, pressure immobilization technique involves tying a crepe bandage around the limb, including an integral splint, in the same way as for the sprain. Fine. Incision, suction, electric shock, cryotherapy, and washing the wound are contraindicated. Even washing the wound is not recommended. Okay, they are all contraindicated. Keep the patient as still and quiet as possible. Fast the patient to be prepared for vomiting. Fine, and be prepared for vomiting. This was all the first aid steps that we could do in case of snake bite. What we did was do it right. Then we don't have to use tight tourniquet like tight arterial tourniquet. We may use the pressure immobilization method. Now, immediate clinical management. It is to be done? Assess and maintain the airway. 100% oxygen if the respiratory signs are present. Okay, first we have to maintain the airway, then we have to give 100% oxygen. If the respiratory signs are present only, then only you have to give. Okay. Respiratory support as indicated and establish the one second. Establish the intravenous access and administer intravenous fluids if required, IV access and intravenous fluids if required. Maintain pressure immobilization bandage and arrange the retrieval to an appropriate hospital. Okay, what we have to do is we have to maintain the pressure immobilization and arrange the retrieval to appropriate hospital. The bandage should not be removed until the patient is fully assessed. Right? Clinical history has been taken, examination and laboratory tests have been performed. Till then, the bandage should not be have to be removed. Stabilization by ABC, IV line in situ and IV fluid resuscitation, and if envenom, appropriate dose of the IV antivenom needs to be given. Do not leave the pressure immobilization bandage in place for long periods of time, especially in the asymptomatic patients. Okay. Remember, ideally, compression bandages should not be released until the patient is under medical care in the hospital. Resuscitation facilities are available, and antivenom treatment has been started. Release of the tourniquet or the compression bandage may result in the dramatic development of severe systemic envenoming. Right. Now, this chart was present above. Early cues that the patient has severe envenomation. Snake identified as a very dangerous one. Rapid early extension of the local swelling from the site of the bite. If the swelling is extending very rapidly. Early tender enlargement of the local lymph nodes indicating the spread of envenom in the lymphatic system has already occurred. Early systemic symptoms like the collapse, due to hypotension and shock, there can be nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, severe headache, heaviness of the eyelids, and inappropriate drowsiness, or early doses and ophthalmoplegia. These are the systemic signs, symptoms which indicate that there is severe envenomation. What will occur? There will be collapse, there will be nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, severe headache, heaviness of the eyelids, that is ptosis, inappropriate drowsiness or early doses, and ophthalmoplegia, early spontaneous systemic bleeding, and passage of dark brown urine. These were all signs that show that there is severe envenomation. This is how the pressure bandage has to be done or splint has to be applied. Apply the band pressure bandage from below upwards and over the bite side as shown as possible. Do not remove the trousers as the movement of doing so will assist the venom to enter the bloodstream. Keep the bitten legs still. Then the bandage should be as light as you would apply to a sprained ankle. The patient should avoid any unnecessary movement. Extend the bandage as high as possible. Apply a splint to the leg, immobilizing the joints either side of the bite. Bind it firmly to as much as the leg as possible, and walking should be restricted. Binds on the hand and the forearm, a bind to the elbow. Use the splint to elbow and use a sling. After the pressure immobilization bandage, the patient fully be should be fully re-evaluated within 2 hours, including the repeat laboratory test or earlier if symptoms develop. Now coming to the ICU management. Airway and breathing, circulatory failure, and ongoing care in the ICU. What needs to be done is first we have to look at the airway and breathing. Right. We can intubate and commence positive pressure ventilation for the unstable airway, hypoventilation, and hypoxemia. In circulatory failure, we have to treat the shock with the isotonic fluids and pressors if required. Avoid central lines in the presence of coagulopathy. Ongoing care in the ICU, that is, observe closely for the onset and the progression of the muscle weakness and monitor the urine output, and indwelling catheter may be necessary. Serial clinical assessment of the respiratory function needs to be done, and check and update the tetanus immunization status once coagulopathy has resolved, and avoid unnecessary venipunctures. If the bandage left in situ, then regular observation for limb circulation should be performed. These were all things that we need to do in the ICU management. Now coming to the laboratory evidence of envenomation. What laboratory findings could be seen? Laboratory testing is in cases of possible snake bite is crucial in the diagnosis and is urgent. Frequent repeat testing is almost always required. This is to ensure that the delayed envenoming or the failure to respond to the initial treatment is not missed. Coagulation studies need to be done. If the initial tests are normal, repeat the testing at least twice at approximately 2 to 3 hour intervals, or more urgently if the patient develops clinical evidence suggestive of envenoming. CBC and the blood film for hemolysis. Where the laboratory testing is not rapidly accessible, a whole blood clotting time may be performed. Right. The 20-minute whole blood clotting test was adopted as a standard test for coagulopathy. It crucially requires a clean, new dry test tube, a few ml of the fresh venomous blood. If left undisturbed for 20 minutes and then gently tilted, if the blood is still liquid, it is the evidence of coagulopathy and confirms that the biting species is viperine. Cobras or cranes do not cause antihemostatic symptoms. Fine. Myoglobinuria or a significantly raised CK indicates myolysis. In such cases, be aware of associated hyperkalemia that can cause lethal cardiotoxicity. Abnormally raised creatinine or urea indicates renal damage. Hyponatremia may also develop, most likely in response to over vigorous IV fluid replacement. And temporary elevation of the LFT sometimes, but is rarely of significance, and LDH is elevated in hemolysis. Fine, this was all we read in the laboratory evidence. Moving ahead for in the anti-snake venom. Anti-venom is the only specific antidote to the snake venom. A most important decision in the management of snake bite victim is whether or not to give the venom. What is antivenom? Antivenom is an immunoglobulin, usually the enzyme refined Fab2 fragment of the IgG, purified from the serum of a horse or a sheep that has been immunized with the venoms of one or more species of the snake. The polyvalent antivenom neutralizes the venom of four most important venomous snakes encountered in India. They are Indian cobra, Indian crate, Russell viper, and saw-scaled viper. How long after the snake bite can ASV be given? Let's see what's the answer to this question. But before that, we have to read the indications for antivenom. When to give the antivenom? Antivenom treatment is recommended and when the patient with the proven or suspected snake bite develops, one or more of the following signs should be present. There could be systemic envenomation with hemostatic abnormalities may be present. Spontaneous systemic bleeding is occurring and coagulopathy is occurring in 20 minute whole blood clotting time or the other laboratory, or thrombocytopenia. Fine. Then in this case, we have to do, these are the hemostatic abnormalities when we have to give antivenom. Neurotoxic signs are occurring, that is ptosis, external ophthalmoplegia, and paralysis. Cardiovascular abnormalities are occurring like hypotension and shock and cardiac arrhythmia and abnormal ECG. Acute renal failure, that is oliguria and anuria are occurring, and there is rising blood creatinine or urea. Hemoglobin, myoglobinuria, hemoglobin or myoglobinuria is occurring, and there is dark brown urine. These all show acute renal failure. On urine dipstick, other evidence of intravascular hemolysis or generalized rhabdomyolysis, muscle aches and pains, and hyperkalemia. Supporting laboratory evidence of the systemic envenoming. Local envenomation, local swelling involving more than half of the bitten limb in the absence of the tourniquet, swelling after bites on the digits, toes, and especially the fingers. If the local swelling is occurring and there is involvement of the other parts of other than the bitten area, then we have to give this antivenom. Rapid extension of the swelling, for example, beyond the wrist or ankle within a few hours of the bitten hand or feet. Development of enlarged tender lymph node draining the bitten limb. Right. So in these cases, we have to give antivenom. Let's revise it in short. Hemostatic abnormalities are occurring, neurotoxic and cardiovascular and acute renal failure. So in hemostatic abnormalities, there will be spontaneous bleeding, there will be coagulopathy, and blood will still be liquid in 20-minute whole blood clotting test, and thrombocytopenia. In neurotoxic, there can be ptosis or external ophthalmoplegia or paralysis. Cardiovascular abnormalities, there might be hypotension, shock, cardiac arrhythmia, and abnormal ECG. And acute renal failure, oliguria, anuria, rising creatinine and urea, hemoglobin and myoglobinuria, dark brown urine. Fine. And in local envenomation, we have to look at the local swelling, rapid extension of the swelling, and enlarged tender lymph nodes. Moving ahead, antivenom treatment should be given. The last question that we talked about was how long after the snake bite can ASP be given. So answer to this will be somewhere here. Let's start. Antivenom treatment should be given as soon as it is indicated. It is effective in reversing the systemic symptoms even after several days, or in case of hemostatic abnormalities, maybe even after given after 2 or more weeks. Oh my god. Fine. So it is effective in reversing the systemic symptoms will be reversed even after several days, or in case of hemostatic abnormalities, maybe even after 2 or more weeks. However, when there are signs of local envenoming without systemic involvement, antivenom will be effective only if can be given within the first few hours after the bite. Fine. If there are local signs of swelling, then antivenom will be effective. Local envenoming without systemic envenomation, the antivenom will be effective only if given within the first few hours after the bite. Now coming at the antivenom administration, storage temperature is 0 to 4 degrees prior to the reconstitution. The antivenom can be used up to 2 years from the date of manufacture. It should always be given IV. Always be given IV. Prepare the patient and the clinical environment for potential anaphylaxis or anaphylactoid reaction to the antivenom. Reconstitute the antivenom powder with 10 ml of the sterile water. Shake well and rotate it between the palms and hands until fully dissolved, and let the vial stand for the serum to clear. The initial dose is 8 to 10 vials for both the adults and children. Dilute the reconstituted antivenom about 1 is to 10. ASV test doses have been abandoned. They have no predictive value in the anaphylactoid reaction or the late serum reactions, furthermore may pre-sensitize the patient to the protein. So start the infusion very slowly, carefully observe the patient reaction, looking for the flushing and rash and tachycardia, hypotension, bronchospasm. In younger children, warning signs also include the nasal, parietal, or the ocular pruritus. coughing, sneezing, profuse sweating, and the fecal or the urinary urgency, incontinence, and abdominal pain. Increase rate aiming to give whole dose over 15 to 20 minutes. Approximately 20% of the patients who receive the ASV develop reaction either early, that is within few hours, or late 5 days or more after being given antivenom. Anaphylaxis. This can occur due to the polyvalent antivenom. Some mild reaction resolve with the temporary cessation of the antivenom infusion and recommending the infusion at a slower rate. Severe life-threatening anaphylaxis can evolve very rapidly, and so adrenaline should be given at the first sign of the reaction, even when only a few spots of urticaria have appeared or the starting of the itching, tachycardia, or restlessness. We have to give adrenaline then and there only. For severe anaphylaxis, antivenom administration must be temporarily suspended. Lie the patient flat if not already, high flow 100% oxygen, and support the airway ventilation as required. Rapid infusion of the normal saline as required, up to 60 ml per kg or more. Adrenaline IM into the lateral thigh, 0.1 mg per kg, 0.01 mg per kg to maximum of 0.3 mg can be repeated every 5 to 10 minutes if the patient's condition is deteriorating. This is the dose of adrenaline which can be given in case of any anaphylaxis reaction. Alternatively, an IV adrenaline infusion can be used to titrate to effect monitoring of the BP every 3 to 5 minutes using the arm opposite to the infusion. Be aware that as the reaction resolves, adrenaline requirement will fall. The blood pressure will rise unless the infusion rate is reduced. It's It is especially vital to prevent the hypertensive episodes in severe coagulopathic patients. So we have to prevent hypertensive episodes also in severe coagulopathic patients, as this can cause intracerebral hemorrhage. Additional treatment for anaphylaxis is hydrocortisone can be given IV 1 to 2 mg per kg. This will act only for few hours but may prevent the recurrent anaphylaxis. Other than hydrocortisone, 1 to 2 mg per kg, what additional treatment could be given for anaphylaxis? We can give H1 blocker like chlorpheniramine maleate IV, zero point 0.2 mg per kg. We can give H2 blocker like ranitidine 1 mg per kg. Consider the nebulization salbutamol for the bronchospasm, nebulization adrenaline for the upper airway obstruction, and IV atropine for severe bradycardia. According to the symptoms, we have to give the treatment. Supportive treatment of the snake envenomation include anticholinesterase drugs like the neostigmine have a variable but potentially very useful effects in patients with a neurotoxic envenoming, especially those bitten by the cobras. Neostigmine is used in patients bitten by cobras. Heparin, corticosteroids, and antifibrinolytic agents should not be used. Fine. Secondary bacterial infection of the bite wound may occur with the abscess formation, which may require drainage and antibiotics. Prophylactic antibiotics are not justified, so we don't have to start antibiotics prophylactically. Despite commonly observed findings of the extensive limb swelling with risk of compartment syndrome, fasciotomy is seldom indicated. Very rarely indicated means. If planned, it should be performed only after coagulation and hemostasis has been corrected. Management of systemic toxicity. Snake bite coagulopathy. Some snakes, like viper, may cause significant coagulopathy as a part of envenoming. This is due to the potent procoagulants in the venom, which in vivo cause consumption of the fibrinogen and the fibrinolysis, that is, defibrillation syndrome. This may occur rapidly following the envenoming within 30 to 60 minutes. Platelets are usually unaffected. What is affected is fibrin. DIC profile should be sent and antivenom therapy should immediately be begin. Once the active venom is all neutralized by the antivenom, normal homeostasis rapidly rectifies the problem, sometimes within 3 hours even. Antivenom therapy can be titrated against the resolution of the coagulopathy. in particular the fibrinogen level. Antivenom therapy can be stopped when the fibrinogen levels are rising. Level needs not be normal before stopping therapy. Replacement therapy with the clotting factors, whole blood or the FFP and the cryoprecipitates should be avoided except if for the life-threatening bleeding, as it may make the coagulopathy worse if there is still active venom, right? So it provides the fuel for the fire. If there is still active venom present in the patient, and we give more blood, no, so it will cause more coagulopathy. Even if the antivenom has been given, many coagulation parameters will be abnormal for hours or days, especially the fibrinogen degradation products. Fine, this was all about the management of snake bite. Let's revise very shortly what we read. So we started with the types of the snakes. Neurotoxic are the cobras and kraits. Uh, in like Hemotoxic are the rattlesnake and vipers. What features of envenomation are the local progressive swelling? Non-specific features include headache, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, collapse, and unconsciousness. And specific features include myolysis can be seen, neurotoxicity, and coagulopathy. First aid, we have to do it right. Reassure the patient, immobilize, then go to the hospital and tell the doctor the systemic symptoms. What are the signs of severe envenomation? If the snake has been identified as a dangerous one, rapid early extension of the local swelling, early tender enlargement of the lymph nodes. There are systemic symptoms like collapse due to hypertension and shock, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, severe headache, heaviness of the eyelids, inappropriate drowsiness or early doses of ophthalmoplegia. There is spontaneous systemic bleeding and there is passage of the dark brown urine. Tourniquets are not usually useful. We can do pressure immobilization method and immediate clinical management. We have to maintain the airway, 100% oxygen, IV access, given IV fluid if required, immobilize the immobilize the bite site or the limb which has been bitten, and we have to give the antivenom and do not open the bandage until the patient has reached the medical facility. In ICU, we have to manage the airway and breathing, intubate if necessary, and the circulatory failure, treat the shock with isotonic fluids and monitor the urine output. Check for tetanus immunization after the coagulopathy has been resolved. In laboratory evidence, we have to do coagulation studies every 2 to 3 hourly. CBC and blood films for hemolysis. Whole blood clotting time could be performed, and myoglobinuria may be raised, or raised CK may be seen in case of myolysis, and hyperkalemia is a risk. Lethal cardiotoxicity can occur if hyperkalemia occurs in case of myolysis. There can be raised creatinine or urea indicating the renal damage. Then LDH may be elevated in hemolysis. We have to give anti-snake venom if when we will discuss further. Polyvalent anti-venom has anti-venom against four important venomous snakes found in India. That is the Indian cobra, Indian crate, Russell viper, and the saw scale viper. These are the guidelines when to give antivenom when the systemic envenomation or local envenomation signs are present. Local envenomation signs include local swelling, rapid extension of the swelling, and enlarged lymph nodes. And in systemic, there are hemostatic abnormalities, neurotoxic signs, and cardiovascular abnormalities and signs of acute renal failure. Fine. We were reading about the anti-snake venom. Moving ahead, anti-snake venom has to be given as soon as it is indicated, and it is effective even after several days in reversing the systemic symptoms, or may be given after 2 or more weeks in case of hemostatic abnormalities. However, when there are signs of local envenoming without systemic envenomation, then it have to be given within the first few hours only. Antivenom administration, it has to be given always IV. We have to be prepared for any anaphylaxis, and it should be reconstituted. The antivenom should be reconstituted in 10 ml of the sterile water. Shake well until the serum is clear. Initial 8 to 10 vials for both the adults and children, and Dilute the reconstituted antivenom in around 1 is to 10 ratio. Start the infusion very slowly and look for signs of anaphylaxis. And this all has to be given within 15 to 20 minutes, and approximately 20% of the patients will show some reaction. So we have to be prepared for anaphylaxis. We have to give adrenaline at the very first sign of reaction, even when few spots of urticaria have appeared and or the patient starts itching or tachycardia and restlessness. For severe anaphylaxis, we have to temporarily suspend the antivenom administration. Patient has to lie flat, give 100% oxygen, rapid infusion of the normal saline, even up to 60 ml per kg or more. Adrenaline IM needs to be given in the lateral thigh at the dose of 0.01 mg per kg to maximum of 0.3 mg, can be repeated every 5 to 10 minutes if the patient's condition is deteriorating. Alternatively, IV adrenaline infusion can be used to titrate the effect, and monitoring of the BP should be done in IV adrenaline every 3 to 5 minutes. And it is especially vital to prevent the hypertensive episodes and severe coagulopathy. Additionally, for anaphylaxis, we can give hydrocortisone at the dose of 1 to 2 mg per kg. It will prevent the recurrent anaphylaxis. H1 blocker like chlorpheniramine maleate in the dose of 0.2 mg per kg may be given. H2 blockers like ranitidine 1 mg per kg, and consider nebulization for bronchospasm. For supportive treatment for the snake envenomation includes neostigmine in case of neurotoxic envenoming like in cobras, heparins, and all these fibrinolytic agents should not be used. Antibiotic prophylaxis not to be given, and fasciotomy may be required in very severe cases of compartment syndrome. And platelets are usually ineffective. DIC profile needs to be done. Replacement with whole blood or clotting factors is avoided except for life-threatening bleeding. And if there is still active venom present, it will like provide a fuel to the fire. Management of the systemic toxicity that we did was this. Thank you.